Hello friends. A little about golf clubs. When I was doing my apprenticeship 50 years ago, we were expected to be competent at repairing golf clubs. It was a big part of the income for a golf professional. And I remember the head pro for whom I was an apprentice actually told me about his predecessor who was at the same club with whom he had apprenticed, and have him sitting outside the golf shop there using a broken piece of glass from a bottle and using it to shave the hickory shaft to change and modify and improve the playing characteristics. Now, wooden shafts, this one's made out of hickory, which became the most popular material because of its durability and other qualities, was the type of thing that was used for centuries, all the way back to the 15th century. It was late in the 18th century, and then much more so in the middle of the 19th century, that they started to make the heads out of wood, out of iron. Prior to that, they were all made of wood with inserts of ram's horn and a few other materials to resist the wear. So irons came along in the 19th century and were mass produced and forged by the middle of the century, and so more affordable. And they were also quite unique in one regard, which is that they didn't have numbers on those clubs the way that we do nowadays. We think of it as a 5-iron, an 8-iron, but they had names, and it's much more sort of romantic and wonderful. This one, which you often see me holding when I'm giving my talks, is a Mashie. And a Mashie, as you can see, is about something like a 7-iron. Now, the longer clubs, here's a mid-iron, was more like a 4-iron, and then you had a driving iron. And I'm going to put a picture here of Harry Vardon's golf clubs. What's striking is that they don't look anything like the stuff that we use nowadays. There weren't that many. We are now limited to 14 clubs. But in those days there were no limits, but obviously he didn't think he needed that many. And they all had names. That was the Mashie, that's the mid-iron. And this is the one that I particularly wanted to tell you about, because as you can probably see, I named my pub after this club, which is a Niblick. And a Niblick, wonderful name, is what we might call a wedge nowadays. And this is a rather peculiar Niblick, because it, as you notice, has a very short head with a deep face. And the purpose of that was to get out of the ruts. What do I mean? Golf courses, as they evolved in Scotland particularly, were on the coast, what they call the linkland. And the golfers would have to deal with also the ruts left by carts going from one town to the next along the coast. And the principal rule of golf is that you play the ball as it lies. And so if that ball ended up in a rut, you needed to get it out. You couldn't just pick it out. And so they needed this deep, short-faced club that would actually allow you to get down in that rut and get the ball out. And it was a few years later by Jean Sarazen, a wonderful American golfer, who took a Niblick and started to put solder on the base of the club and shape it with a file until he got a result that he wanted, because he was so frustrated trying to get out of bunkers with one of these things. They're so sharp that if you hit the sand just slightly wrong, the ball would either get left in the bunker or whistle over the green. And so to this day, the design that he concocted out of frustration is pretty much how sand wedges are made right now. A Niblick.